say black magic. What are you talking about? Some of the things that I read in the stack of material, it sounds just absolutely unbelievable. What are you talking about when you say this?
Well, the funny thing is that the actual truth is about as far out as Scientology itself. Really, the basis of Scientology, which is rather hidden and covered over, is the occult, the deep involvement with satanic powers, and he felt that he was deeply involved with a British black magician called Aleister Crowley, and through putting himself in deep hypnotic trance and the use of drugs on himself, he wanted to become the most powerful being in the world.
9th, 10th, 11th, 12th centuries in the Middle East were fascinating. The only modern work that has anything to do with them is trifle wild in spots, but it's fascinating work in itself. And that's work written by Aleister Crowley, the late Aleister Crowley, my very good friend. And he did himself a splendid piece of aesthetics built around those magic cults. It's very interesting reading to get a hold of a copy of a book, quite rare, but it can be obtained, The Master Therion, Therion, The Master Therion by Aleister Crowley. He signs himself the Beast, Mark of the Beast, 666. Very, very something or other.
Hope everybody's doing okay. This is Slaves of Satan, part 33. And what you saw there should be enough to tell you what you need to know about L RON Hubbard. Already, that tells you all you need to know. But I'm going to go through all the facts and evidence about him, so there's no type of lingering thoughts that people are just putting accusations on him. And for people waiting on these videos, I'm sorry that I haven't uploaded in a while. It just honestly took me longer than I thought to gather as much information as I could. Because a lot of people don't know how connected L RON Hubbard is to all these other figures. A lot of people know him just for Scientology, but it goes far beyond that. And this does overlap somewhat with part 32 about Jack Parsons and the Babylon working rituals. But I would still highly suggest to watch this for further insight. So he was the founder of Dianetics and Scientology. He's a pulp fiction writer. After Dianetics failed, he created Scientology. Started the religion after he became bankrupt, and Scientology tries to prep him up like he was some hero in the Navy, but he actually got kicked out of the Navy for faking a stomach and eye condition so he didn't have to go off to war. Now, the first Scientology church opened in 1954 in New Jersey. Then later, Hubbard was convicted of fraud in many countries. He was ran out of a lot of countries, not allowed back. Now, this all started when he had a near-death experience at a dentist office. And my opinion on these near-death experiences doesn't really align with most people. I think some of them are legit. I think some of these people do see the other side rather good or bad, because we know that it's possible, because Paul in the Bible writes about how he knew a man that saw the third heaven, and in the Bible the third heaven means the heaven that God resides in. The second heaven means the spirit realm, and first heaven means where we're at now. But a lot of people, I believe they get deceived by these near-death experiences, that they're actually shown the opposite by an evil force. So while after that near-death experience, that's when he joined the Navy, got discharged. Then in 1945, he moved in with Jack Parsons, who was running an OTO lodge in Pasadena, out of his home. And I've talked about the OTO many times in these videos. It started out as a direct revival of the Illuminati, the Bavarian Illuminati, but then Crowley got a hold of it and eventually took leadership position, and it was turned into a satanic Thelema sex cult, and it's still around today. The Masons try to cover it up and make it not really look as bad as it is, but it's horrible. I've got into what goes on in those OTO lodges over and over again. There's really no need to reiterate it again on this one. So after he moved in with Parsons, he took his girl right away, because that's something you'll see with these Satanist people. They usually don't really value staying with one person, then they'll pass their girls around and all that stuff. And Jack Parsons got into a relationship with Sarah, one of Hubbard's associates. Then they began the Babylon working rituals. Now, I went into these in huge detail in my last two videos, altogether about 2 hours. But it was basically sex rituals using Enochian magic, to attempt to bring forth the goddess of Thelema, Babylon. It was modeled after Aleister Crowley's Amalantra working ritual in the early 1900s. You can say it was a sequel to that, because it opened the door for all these demonic, fallen angelic entities to come into the world, because in the Amalantra working ritual, for anyone that studied this stuff, you'll know that Lam came out of that door. But in this case, L RON Hubbard and Parsons ripped a hole in space and time and never closed it. And right after that, that's when the Roswell incident happened. Shortly afterwards, that's when the UFO things started having phenomenon everywhere. That's when people started seeing them nonstop. Like, for anyone that thinks I'm reaching, go on Wikipedia, look at UFO sightings, look at the amount that was seen before the late to mid 1940s, and you'll see that sometimes it went 20, 30, 40 years without anyone ever reporting a sighting. Then look at after late 1940s, and it's non-stop, and it just gets worse and worse and worse, because that ritual stains the world forever, unfortunately. Now, Hubbard was made a scribe in these rituals, and Jack Parsons sent Aleister Crowley a personal letter, and it's really disgusting. He addresses Aleister Crowley as father, and talks about Jack Parsons. Talks about L RON Hubbard, how despite having any formal training in magic, that he's the most thelemic person I've ever met, and he is in contact with higher forces, possibly his guardian angel, and on all that stuff. Now, one night when they was doing these rituals, Hubbard got possessed by a female goddess that he called the voice, the flame of life, and power of darkness. And basically was talking through him like automatic talking in this case. where someone takes you over and talks through you, like a medium type thing. And his past came up in the search of Scientology, and they admitted it, and they just claimed that it was, something that Hubbard was doing as a good deed to rescue Sarah. They called it the missing, and to rescue Sarah, and all kinds of nonsense to cover for him. Hubbard created manuscripts that he called affirmations to be used for self-hypnosis, because one of the things he was into was implanting hypnosis on people, because you have to be able to brainwash these people to a very high degree. And I talked about this on the last video because, like I said, these overlap a little bit towards the beginning. Basically, he scammed Parsons out of everything he had for a yacht business, and instead of giving him his share and starting the business, he took off with all his money, bought a yacht, ran away. Then eventually, after Parsons told Aleister Crowley what happened, Parsons did the lesser banishment ritual, the pentagram, the boat crashes, and L RON Hubbard survives. Then he gives him $2,900, and then the girl, the hoe, says that she's gonna say that he statutory raped her if he tries to sue and all that stuff. So then Parsons just canceled it, and he had to sell his mansion and all that stuff. Okay. So in 1946, Hubbard married Sarah while he was still married to his first wife. Then in 1947, Hubbard began writing again, and he wrote a novel. The End Is Not Yet. Later in October 1947, L RON Hubbard started writing short stories called Old Doc Methuselah. He's a weird guy. In 1950, he wrote a novel called To the Stars. Then in 1947, he wrote the VA asking for psychiatric help. In 1948, he was arrested for a fraudulent check. In 1948, he moved back to Georgia, and he happened to move to 666 East Avenue while he began to write Dianetics. Now, a lot of people think that Dianetics and Scientology are separate things, but they're not. They go together. Dianetics, the best way to explain it, is the psychological, mental part of Scientology, because there's 3 Dianetic books, and then I believe there's 7 Scientology books, and they're more about the lore and the spiritual part of it. Not that any of it is good. Like, I wouldn't claim that the Dianetic books are evil, but it's just stuff that you don't need if you have the Lord. Now, Hubbard claimed to discover a state of mind called the clear that would cure all illness, grant photographic memory, increase your IQ, increase your eyesight, and so on and so on. And he claimed that with the clear, that basically any condition you ever had could be cured. He made the claim that basically all forms of sickness is psychosomatic and can be cured from reaching a state of mind called the clear. So it's pretty similar to what these New Age cults talk about when they talk about achieving higher consciousness or Christ consciousness or your higher self, and stuff like that. Except he called it the clear, so it's repackaging ideas that were kind of hot at the time and just putting different labels on it. He claimed 1,000 out of 1,000 patients that he tested with the process was all cured, but he had no proof of this. Dianetics, an article was featured in the magazine called Astounding, and then Dianetics was released in 1950. And he won't tell you this, but it's called Dianetics because he had an obsession with the god Diana, and Hathor, and the Thelemic Babylon. He named his ship Diana, and I believe he had a daughter he named Diana as well. And there's another reason why it's called Dianetics. The other reason is because, and this is the more esoteric occult one, there is sex ritual magic that Crowley popularized that Hubbard used called Dianism, and this is very popular in today's secret societies, and it's very popular in all the Satanism, all the sex cults, high-ranking Freemasonry, all of it. Dianism is where you have sex or masturbate, depending on the level of the ritual, and right before you climax, you stop. Then they believe that that the sperm shoots back up into your head, and you can communicate with these gods, these demonic gods. He then established the Hubbard Dianetic Research Founding. In August 1950, Dianetics failed in an audience of over 6,000 people. Later that year, the Hubbard Foundation was in a financial crisis. In 1951, Hubbard published Science of Survival, where the concept of thetan and the whole track auditing was introduced. Okay, so before I explain that, I want to point out that L RON Hubbard had a quote that many people close to him admitted that they heard, and he said, "If you want to be rich," he said, "you don't get rich from writing novels. If you want to get rich, start a religion." And I paraphrased it, but I'll put it right there. And just like these brainwashed people always do with these cults, they stayed. Now anyways, so a thetan in Scientology is what is a state where you supposedly get these demons off of you. So they believe that, I'll get into it in more detail later, but they believe that a certain event happened that made billions of people die on Earth billions of years ago, and these people that died became basically angry evil spirits called thetans, and that thetans attach themselves to everyday citizens, and that brings us down and it makes us forget that we used to be gods. And when you become an operating thetan in Scientology, which is part of the ranking system, then you're no longer bound by those thetans. And a whole track auditing is where while they're using this thing that they always use, I'll get into in more detail, called an electropsychometer or an e-meter. They look at your past lives, basically. So the book failed. Signs of Survival failed to be a success, and only sold 1,250 copies. And well, nowadays it did good after Scientology got popular, but it failed when it was released. And he later lost the right to Dianetics. Now, in 1952, he officially created Scientology. At a convention, Hubbard announced a new revolution, far beyond Dianetics, he called Scientology. Scientology promised a chance to achieve godlike power in a state called operating thetan. Hubbard then introduced a device known as an electropsychometer or an e-meter, just like I was talking about a minute ago. So, which involved the user to hold metal cans to measure changes in skin conductivity. Due to variance in sweating and grip. So I just want to point out that this is the biggest con artist in that probably had any hand in these satanic groups. Like this is the top scam artist occultist, and I want to talk about how this proves an example of mind control. You had all these people then, and still a gigantic number of people today that really believes that them holding metal cans with someone else with some random electric device on the other side is making them into a god. And it's not that it shows how many stupid people there are, which there is that too, but it shows how easily somebody can be brainwashed. Now, in 1906, Carl Jung used a similar device, who I'm not a fan of at all. Now, obviously, some of the stuff he said is true, but he's had a very, very big impact on not only society, but media of all forms, books, movies, TV shows, video games. They've all really nitpicked and took certain things from Jung's teachings. Now, Hubbard claimed the e-meter, the electropsychometer, had mystical abilities. Hubbard then married a 20-year-old staff member named Mary Sue Whipp. So he's on his third marriage now. Afterwards, moved to Phoenix, Arizona. Then began the Hubbard Association of Scientologists, and would be treated like a fast food chain. So the way it works is as a person with a little bit of money for a building and everything, and enough money to buy all the stuff that is needed, you can buy into a Scientology franchise, and all you have to do is pay, I believe it's 10% of everything you get from donations or fees. It will 10%, I believe that's what it is, will all go back to L RON Hubbard, and today it would all go back to David Miscavige, but no one's seen him for almost 3 years, so who knows who it would go to nowadays. But you see how much of a scam it is. You got a cult, cult as in CULT, not a cult. You have a science fiction cult selling it like a fast food chain. Now this is what I mean by this is the top scammer in the occult. Now, in July 1952, Hubbard published What to Audit, and later changed the name to Scientology, A History of Man. I'll tell you all about the E-meter and those two cans. In November of that year, Hubbard published Scientology 8-80, and December followed up with Scientology 8-8008, which claimed the universe was created by the mind. Now, as stupid as that sounds, I've still heard people talk about ridiculous claims like that. Like the other day, I heard somebody saying that the universe was created by the goddess that he doesn't even give a name for, that she just thought about the universe and created it. So there is, as ridiculous as this is, there's a lot of people that believe in stupid stuff like this, and I, as a teacher myself, I do teach a lot of things that sounds really crazy, but I have evidence to back up what I'm saying, because a lot of crazy things are true, but these people introduce ridiculous, crazy things with no information and no evidence or proof. Just that smooth talk. Later that December, Hubbard gave a lecture in Philadelphia connecting rituals and Scientology to the magical practices of Aleister Crowley, and telling the crowd to read the Master Therion. He then told the crowd that he was the Prince of Darkness. Now, this is what they won't tell you either. So, if I just sum it up real quick, Scientology is a mixture of Thelema, New Age, and sci-fi. And is there any truth in it? A little bit, but it's nothing that would help somebody wanting to develop a relationship with Jesus Christ. The little bit of truth that there is in there would only serve somebody that is trying to build a relationship with the enemy. And there's a big difference between somebody that studies the occult for reasons to find some good out of it, which there is some good out of it. People will dispute me on this, but there is some good things that are hidden, and there is some good things that is actually good, but it just got a bad reputation because they don't want regular people to know that it is good. Like, for example, the pineal gland. I'm a very heavy believer in the pineal gland. And not all metaphysics are bad either. Now, later that December, Hubbard was arrested for not returning $9,000 he owed to the Waseda Foundation. In April 1953, Hubbard started setting up spiritual guidance centers and called it the religious angle. On December 18th, 1953, Hubbard started the Church of Scientology in Camden, New Jersey. The first location in 1954, the California Church of Scientology received tax exemption. By 1966, all the organizations in the U.S. received tax exemption. Now, a lot of people don't understand that this whole thing about freedom of religion, that was not supposed to include cults like Satanism or anything that they were doing blood sacrifices with, like Paramayambe or like the dark side of Santeria and stuff like that. By 1957, Hubbard was making $250,000 a year. Hubbard was known to have his enemies attacked. He wasn't going to let those ops run around, was he? His son said the only thing he knew how to do was to destroy people. Now, I want to mention that his son, who was originally L RON Hubbard Jr., that was speaking at the beginning of this video on that news interview, changed his name to Ronald DeWolf, basically because he wanted to distance himself from that whole scene so badly. Hubbard taught his followers to never defend and to only attack. He also regained the rights to Dianetics in 1954. In 1956, Hubbard wrote Fundamentals of Thought that taught life was a predetermined game. So now he's making it even more of a buffet style religion. Now you got fatalism going on with it. In 1957, Hubbard wrote all about radiation, with falsely claimed radiation poisoning and cancer could be cured by vitamins. I see this guy's all over the place. In 1958, Hubbard wrote, "Have you lived this life before?" A text about regaining past life memories. The same year, the D.C. Church temporarily lost its tax exemption. In 1959, Hubbard bought St. Hill Manor and used it as a training center for high-level Scientologists. The same year, Ronald DeWolf resigned from the church. After this, Hubbard began a policy known as security checking, where suspicious members would be interrogated by the E-meter. Now, if you know anything like in the exoteric part about Scientology, it's very, very, very well known about lawsuits. Lawsuits, murder, extortion, violence, kidnapping. They've had many exposés. Time Magazine did one. back in 2015, I believe that's the year it was, HBO released a documentary about them. Now, in January 1963, the FDA raided American Scientology offices for false medical claims, and they seized over 100 e-meters, labeling them as illegal medical devices, and thousands of pills that Hubbard claimed to be a cure for cancer and radiation poisoning. Then in November 1963, the government of Australia opened an investigation on Scientology and accused them of brainwashing, blackmail, extortion, and damaging the mental health of its members. The report released in October 1965 condemning Scientology and a Hubbard. Scientology was then banned in Western and Southern Australia. So it's to be telling you something that how bad this actually is if it's getting banned in countries, because it's not very often that you hear about new religions getting banned unless if it's like a total cult, because this is much worse on the inside than people think. Like the current leader, David Miscavige, no one has seen his wife in like 15 years. Like, pretty much everyone believes that Shelley is probably got killed, because they have what you call a disconnect policy, where you're not allowed to speak to any family member if they're not a Scientologist. And we'll talk about what they do to people that don't listen here in a second. In later 1965, Hubbard introduced ethics technology. Part of this was the disconnect policy, and members were also required to write reports to tell other members to tell other members for not obeying search rules. Hubbard also created a long list of search crimes and punishments. So now everyone's got to snitch on each other. In March 1966, Hubbard created the Guardian's Office to handle external affairs and to target criticism. So basically, like, that's for whenever someone writes a negative article to try to sue them, attack them, all that stuff. Kind of sounds like Joseph Smith storming the printing press. Well, he got his goons to do it. In 1967, Hubbard added the fair game policy, meaning any enemy of Scientology may be stripped, lied to, stolen from, sued, or even destroyed. Hubbard acquired a fleet of 3 ships. In 1968, Hubbard was banned from the UK, Canada, New Zealand, and South Africa. He's gaining quite a resume. Hubbard then purchased ships and created the Sea Org, a navy of elite Scientologists. Hubbard then wrote OT3, the esoteric story of Xenu. So in Scientology, there's a lot of low ranks you go through, but then the ranks that start to mean something is the OT, operating theater, and it goes up to OT8. That's the highest, and you have to pay thousands and thousands to get each of these ranks, and put in the time. So, some celebrities that are still in this, which a huge amount are, has given the church millions. So the esoteric story of Xenu, basically, I think they say it's like 70 some billion years ago, that Xenu took a bunch of humans from other planets, took them here, and the versions vary, but this is the one I've always heard, stuffed them all inside volcanoes, and then basically made the volcanoes erupt and killed millions of people, and those people became the thetans that they claim attached to you, that the operating thetan, the OT, has to remove from the members to achieve the clear. Yeah, this is the level of mind control that they get you under, because people genuinely believe this. He then began drinking and using drugs such as stimulants, opiates, cocaine, etc. Hubbard then claimed he was being pursued by enemies that would lead to world chaos. Problems occurred on the ship that led to Hubbard throwing members overboard. So now he's starting to, I don't say murder people, because when you're in the middle of the ocean, you get thrown overboard. Your chances of survival are pretty slim. And God can help anybody, but these people don't really have God's favor. So Hubbard then began to dispatch Sea Org members to search for evidence of his past lives. In 1973, he published Mission into Time about these searches. Hubbard now had an entire military force and murdered Sea Org members. It is reported that he shot multiple people. He also started the Commodore's Messenger organization, which was used to sexually harass girls. So basically, the Commodore's Messenger organization was young girls would be dressed in the most skimpy, provocative stuff possible, while they just ran around and did all of L. Ron Hubbard's little favors. And I'm sure he would have his way with them and do who knows what kind of disgusting stuff. Now, in 1969, the Scientology cross was used, and people don't know this, but that cross is based off of the one that Aleister Crowley used. It's also very similar to the Rosicrucian one, the ancient mystical order of the Rosy Cross. Now, I personally don't believe in crosses because, to me, it's focusing too much on Jesus dying and not resurrecting. It makes you think of his death, not his rebirth, because he rose from the dead on the third day, and then after he spent time here, he ascended up to heaven. And the cross, I feel like, mentally takes away from that. And I wouldn't say it's bad to wear, but you'll see a lot of very wicked people linking things with crosses. And also, before Christians start wearing crosses, in the past, crosses were pagan. Because it meant Tammuz. Now, I would say a crucifix is completely evil. I don't think anybody should wear a crucifix. Nobody should have dead Jesus Christ on their neck. That, to me, that is a sin, and I wouldn't even say that's a graven image or an idol. In October 1969, the Sunday Times released an expose on the shirts, revealing involvement with Jack Parsons, Aleister Crowley, and Black Magic. In mid-1972, Hubbard tried to form a secret base in Morocco and failed. In December 1972, France charged L Ron Hubbard with fraud. Hubbard then temporarily left the Sea Org to live underground in Queens, New York. In September 1973, Hubbard returned to the Sea Org. He then had a motorcycle accident in 1973. In 1974, Hubbard established the Rehabilitation Project Force. In 1974, Hubbard's son Quentin attempted suicide. In 1973, Hubbard began the Snow White program, which was basically something that was started to get rid of any type of bad press circulating and doing whatever they had to do to anybody to get rid of it. Then in 1977, the D.C. church was raided because of this Project Snow White. The government carried out the Operation Bulldozer leak, which was something that they started to pretty much just expose and leak everything that was going on at these so-called churches. Now, after a heart attack, Hubbard returned to the USA in 1975 in October. According to a former member, using a fake name by Heidi Forrester, in late 1975, Hubbard performed a Crowley sex magic ritual on her called Dianism, which I explained earlier. And this is kind of graphic, so if you don't really want to hear anything kind of disturbing sexually, you can skip it a minute or two. But the woman that claimed to be raped by him, she specifically said that he just laid on top of her for an hour because he could not get hard, and that she doesn't know how he did it, but with his hands he inserted a non-erected penis inside of her and just laid there for an hour with it inside of her. And the people that she talked to told her that it was most likely a black magic ritual, because for some reason that's what they do. Because for some reason that gets what they want done happen. And L Ron Hubbard had her penalized for not getting pregnant, and she didn't get an abortion from my understanding. She just didn't get pregnant. But according to his son Ronald DeWolf, he would get his wife Mary pregnant over and over again, and he would take wired hangers and do at-home abortions because he believed it was making him more powerful. And Ronald DeWolf also said that the day Aleister Crowley died was a life-saving day for L Ron Hubbard, because he thought that the mantle of the beast was passed on to him, and up until the day he died, he believed he was the devil. Okay. Now, in June 1976, two Guardian Office agents was arrested, was caused Hubbard to move his hideout to California. In October 1976, Quentin was found dead in his car with the hose connected to the tailpipe. And according to witnesses, L RON Hubbard did not care whatsoever and was just very angry because it was going to bring him bad press. In July 1977, the FBI raided the Los Angeles and the D.C. locations again. A week after the raid, Hubbard fled to Sparks, Nevada, where he was hiding out there. Now, in 1978, Hubbard fell into a coma, but later recovered. Then Hubbard summoned his personal auditor, David Mayo, to heal him. In August 1979, Hubbard saw his wife for the last time while facing a possible indictment for Operation Freakout, which was another this was an operation, I believe, done by the FBI or government based off of information that they got from those two Guardian agents just about everything that was going on in the search. In February 1980, Hubbard went back into hiding. Now, in the OT8 documents dated for 1980, Hubbard started talking about the events of Revelation in the Bible, and he claimed that he would be reincarnated as a political figure, and that he was gonna halt the events of Revelation by derailing the second coming of Jesus Christ. And Lord Yeshua, forgive me for having to say this, but in these documents, he made a very blasphemous and evil claim, saying that Jesus would burst into a different series of extreme anger and an extreme blasphemy. L RON Hubbard claimed that Jesus Christ was a homosexual, a pederact, and that he liked little boys. And Jesus Christ, you know that's not true, and you know that I did not mean saying that. But people have to know how evil this really is, because people look at Scientology and start busting out laughing. Now, there is stuff that's funny about it, obviously, but it's also very true and very wicked. And a lot of people left when they got to OT8, because you had to get to OT8 to learn this. And they tried to deny it, but people that got this rank, multiple people came out and said it was absolutely correct. And now, of course, the David Miscavige has changed OT8 to try to hide the past. Now, in December 1988, Hubbard attempted suicide with a custom e-meter. Then in January 1986, he finally died from a stroke. Now, he was influenced by multiple people. A lot of the people, it's the same people that's influenced most of the people in this series. like, if people have watched all of these and they're still in denial about this connection that I'm making, which soon I'm gonna make a recap and just lay it all down, and if people are still denying this connection, then they're very lost and in having cognitive dissonance. Now, he was influenced by Sigmund Freud, Richard Seaman, because of the he created the engram term. He was into social Darwinism. Herbert Spencer, who created the survival of the fittest motto. Alfred Korzybski, Now here's the two that we always see. Helena Blavatsky, and his main influence, of course, the beast Aleister Crowley. Now, the start of Scientology, called the Bridge to Total Freedom, is just a reshaped form of the Bridge to Freedom from the I Am movement, the cult about ascended masters. So that's where Helena Blavatsky comes in. So he just drew from another cult. And he also taught astral projection, but he called it going exterior. And like I said, Hubbard believed in the goddesses Babylon, Hathor, and Diana. And the Commodore's messenger organization, the one with all the young girls, was actually inspired by the Hitler Youth Group. And here's another trend that we keep seeing. Hubbard believed that he was creating Superman, which goes back to Friedrich Nietzsche, which is connected to all these people too. Now, in 1966, two former members started the Process Church of Final Judgment, which is a mix of Hubbard's teachings and Satanism, which Charles Manson was a former member of. And all this began because Hubbard read the Book of the Law at age 16. Then right after that, he started getting into magic, and then he joined the Rosicrucians in 1940, and then eventually he actually joined Crowley's group. So you see, once again, you see his entire life started by getting involved, rather in person or just through reading a book by Aleister Crowley. All this connected again to the wickedest man in the world. And I hope people are watching these in order, because this case that I've built with all these has made it basically, in my opinion, impossible not to start believing it. And I have plenty more to get out. I'm just getting started. And like I said, he was also into automatic writing, in contact with ascended masters, clairvoyance, automatic speaking, tarot cards, all that. So all this started from Crowley, just like everything else. And I'm sorry that I haven't uploaded in a while. The next few will probably be shorter videos, so hopefully I'll be able to get them out soon. Thank you. Have a good rest of the day.